Hey everyone, this is Joe. I am the digital astronomer. Thank you for tuning into my channel. You know, the Orion Nebula is one of my favorite objects in the night sky. It's one of the earliest objects that I photographed when I first began in astrophotography 3 years ago, and I fell in love with it. It's really, if you think about it, a perfect target. The beginner can go out, it's easy to find, it's bright. Every image that you ever take of it is going to be somewhat spectacular. But it also offers you an opportunity to improve on your technique. And what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go all the way back to 2019, and I'm going to show you the very first pictures of the Orion Nebula that I ever took. And then I'm going to show you, as I've made progress both in my equipment, my capturing technique, and my processing technique, I'm going to show you the improvements that I've made step by step until my most recent picture of the Orion Nebula, which in my opinion is the best that I have ever captured. Stick around. I want to tell you all about it. Okay, let me, before I get into the pictures, just remind you of what exactly I want to do here. My goal here is not really to give you any lessons on technique or try to get into the nuance of processing here. What I want to do is just give you some encouragement. I want to show you where I began. Now, I got interested in astronomy way back in middle school, back in the late 1970s, early 1980s. That's when I got interested in astronomy, but I didn't get involved in astrophotography until just 3 years ago. So the very first image that I ever took of Orion was taken in October of 2019. That's not been that long ago. I took it with a Celestron 6-inch telescope with a ZWO-224 uncooled camera. And you'll see, the results are nothing to write home about, except they got me excited. I mean, the amazing thing about astrophotography is even sometimes when you take what I look at now as going an ugly and very bad picture, it was great then, and it enthused me and it got me excited. But I want you to remember something, that this is always about progress. If you're going to progress in astrophotography, you've got to learn to look at your own pictures and critique them. They're never going to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfection in this hobby. In fact, I go with that motto that Winston Churchill said, that perfection is the enemy of progress. Don't just go compare your images to, some of the guys on AstroBin and go, I'll never be able to do that, and give up. Look at them. Figure out what's wrong with your image and then work to improve it. And what I want to show you is a progression from October of 2019 until this month here, December 2021. And I want to show you in just that short of period of time the improvement that I've made. And I'm going to break this down into 3 categories. I'm going to talk to you about equipment, capture technique, and processing technique. So let's start off by going all the way back to October 2019, and let's look at the very first picture that I ever captured of the Orion Nebula. Okay, I'm going over to my Facebook page here where I post all of my pictures, and I just want to go down through here. I'm looking through here at some of my earliest attempts in the spring and summer of 2019 at astrophotography, and I'm going to kind of move up here, and here is my very first attempt at the Orion Nebula. In fact, you can see that I've posted here on October 19th, 2019. Last night I got my first chance to try to image the Orion Nebula. I was not able to do any long exposures because the battery on my Celestron power tank was almost dead, but I did get to do some very short exposures EAA style, and they have piqued my desire to spend much more time on this object. Now, you'll notice a couple of things here. When this, as far as equipment goes, I shot this particular picture with the Celestron 6-inch SET with the ZWO224 camera. That's an uncooled camera, and you can see the picture is a little bit noisy. From a capture technique, let me kind of point out the fact that it's not really focused very well. This is a little bit out of focus. I'm not sure that at that time I even knew how to use a batten-off mask yet. I think I was just kind of putting it on a star, trying to adjust the focus the best that I could and kind of eyeball it. And so you can see I don't have very good focus here. It's not framed very well. Obviously, the field of view on this setup would have been kind of small. I do think I had the 0.63 focal reducer in here. And so you can see the core is badly overexposed. And the processing, honestly, I didn't do any real processing on this. This was captured in SharpCap, and basically I stacked, I think I said on here, this was 15 minutes worth of 5-second exposures, and they were just live stacked. I saved that as a PNG file in SharpCap, and at the time, that was the best I could do. Now, to be very honest with you, I was blown away by it. To me, this looked like something taken by the Hubble at the time. And now I look at it, I'm almost embarrassed to show it to you. But it was a start. And that's the thing about the Orion Nebula that's so cool. You could take even what I would look at today and go, well, that's not a very good picture. And it's still kind of spectacular. It still kind of captures your interest. And at the time, it really made me want to get more deeply involved in astrophotography. So I began working on improving both my equipment and my technique, both in the area of capture. You can see over the next couple of nights, I did a couple of more captures here and here. But what I want to do is move up to this one, because this really represents the next increment. This was taken on November 20th, 2019. And again, you'll notice here that I'm blaming bad transparency. That's probably more or less me trying to make an excuse for why the picture still didn't come out the way I wanted it to. But let me put on out a couple things. I've made a little bit of an improvement in the area of my equipment. I have added the Night Owl 0.40 focal reducer to my 6-inch telescope. Now, the advantage of that makes the whole system much faster, gives me a little bit wider field of view, and you can see that. So I'm capturing a little, rather than just capturing this section here of the nebula, I'm reaching out and I'm capturing a larger percentage of it. It's framed up a little bit better. So from a capture technique standpoint, I think that I did a little bit better job of framing it. But still notice, from the capture standpoint, I've still got a badly overblown core. You can't see any detail in the core at all. From a capture technique standpoint, I'm still not getting a whole lot of time. I'm not sure the total amount of times. I think this is it's about 10 minutes, it says here, of integration time. So again, I still have to work on getting much, much longer exposure time. But look at the improvement. Look at that picture. Then if I go back and pick that one up, that's a big difference. That's only about a month and a one piece of equipment different. And so I'm making some improvement. Now, I still need to work on my technique in the area of processing and getting this a little bit better. Okay, so that was my second attempt. Let's go back up and let's look at the third attempt. Here's Orion. Oops. Here is Orion attempt number 3. This was done on December 18th of 2019. And you'll see that I've got a little bit better focus here. You're starting to see some of the details in some of this wispy area. But look, I'm not getting a lot of the nebula. I'm getting this central part of the nebula, but these longer reaching arms, I'm still not really getting them. I'm not getting enough exposure time. And again, notice here on my Facebook post, I even noticed this. I say the area around the trapezium, very bright area in the center, is still a bit overexposed. That's not a bit overexposed. That's a lot overexposed. The problem was I really didn't know how to fix it. Now, thankfully, someone named Christian Harris, and Christian Harris, if you're watching this, thank you, commented on my Facebook post and said, I usually take a lower ISO shot, like 100, and then stitch it on top of the stacked image, something like this. And I looked at it and went, hey, that's better than mine. Now, I didn't know that what this was creating a high dynamic range. I didn't even know that that was such a thing. But I looked at this picture and went, oh, okay, I'm getting the idea. I've got to take some shorter integration times, maybe at a lower gain. I've got to make some adjustments and stack something underneath of here to capture that dynamic range, to be able to capture that very bright detail at the center, not lose it, but still get this outward wispiness. So I began to work on it. I began to think, well, how can I do that? How can I improve? Here is my next shot. This is the fourth attempt that was taken in December 2020. Now, this is some different equipment. Let me mention this to you. I've gone up now and I'm using the Orion ED80T. And so moving from a refractor from the Schmidt-Cassegrain made a big difference, quite frankly. I can capture a lot better images with the Orion on things like Nebula than I can with the Orion ED80T. That telescope, I do a lot better with it than I did with the Celestron. All right, I'm using the ZWO 183 MC Pro camera. I've also got the L Pro filter on it, so I'm getting rid of a little bit of the light pollution. And right away you can see something. I'm getting a little more of this faint detail out here. And again, when I took this picture, this was my first attempt to combine multiple exposure times to keep the core from blowing out. And I even mentioned that here. I took some 180 second, 60 second, and 30 second exposures, but I still didn't really know what I was doing with the processing. What I really did with this was throw that all into Astro Pixel processor. I just threw them all in and just let it try to sort it out. And it came out a little bit better. You can see I've got a little bit better dynamic range up in here. The core's still blown out. Can't get the trapezium in there at all. It still looks really bad. But again, improvement from where I started. So now I want to show you the fifth attempt. And this was with taking a lot of time to research it. I watched a lot of videos on YouTube about how to process high dynamic range images, and I really started to work on this a lot. And here is my latest image. In fact, I'm going to blow this up just to make it look a little bit larger so you can see it. Notice I've got a whole lot more detail. I've got all of this wispiness out around here. It's framed up a lot better. I'm shooting this with the Orion ED80T with a 0.80 focal reducer on it. And then I'm using the ZWO 183 MC Pro camera. Now, some of the big improvements that I've made with this as far as equipment and capture technique is, first of all, I'm using better equipment, but I'm also doing a much better job of guiding. Notice that the stars are much smaller and rounder. Let me go back to that last one and let me show that to you. Look how bloated and ugly the stars are on this one. Bloated, ugly, not very good, okay? And they really distract away from this. Now, up here with much better guiding and working on my guiding, look how much better the stars look. Much, much better. Not only that, look, you can see the trapezium. If we go down in here, and I can't get much, let me go over, well, you can see it there. Here you can see, if I zoomed in here tighter, if Facebook would let me, you can actually see the four distinct stars right in here. I'm sorry. Right in here, you can see the four stars of the trapezium right in this core. Now, the way that I did that, by the way, was to take a lot more data. From a capture technique, I spent a lot more time, captured a lot more data, And this breaks down to 2 hours worth of 15-second subs, 4 hours of 60-second subs, plus 2 hours of 30-second subs. Now I combined those two integrations together in AstroPixel Processor. Then 4 hours of 180-second subs. That's a total of 12 hours of total integration time, and represented in 3 different stacks: my 15-second stacks, my combined 60 and 30-second stack, and then the 180-second stack. And then what I did was took those over to Photoshop. I processed each one individually. Let me show you. This is my 15-second integration, and you can see why I did that. That way I could capture the trapezium. This allows me not to overblow that core. This is the combined 60 and 30 seconds, which gives me a little bit more detail out around in this area. And then the 180 second, which captures all this out around here. Then what I did was simply put these together. I'll just show you how I did that real quickly. I went over here to the 15-second integration, create a layer, okay, and then what I want to do is come over here and copy, Control A, Control C, and then what I want to do is over on this one, go back over to my 15-second, go to this layer and paste it on top of there, create a layer mask. Okay, and then what I can do is just come over here and with the paintbrush, get me a brush tool, and I want a very big brush. You can see here, I think this is a 401 pixels. I've got it in, let me open that up. I've got it very soft, 0% here. I've got the opacity turned down to 15%. And then what I can do is just come in here and click. And notice what I'm doing. I'm revealing that 15-second exposure underneath. And so then what I could do is I can come back in here and I can add the 180-second, doing the same thing. Control A, Control C to copy it. Come over here, create a layer, copy, and then paste that back on there. Create a layer mask. Then I can just come over here, and you can see what I'm doing. I'm just creating a higher dynamic range, and that's what I did to create this image, and I am really happy with it. I think it really came out. This is the best image of Orion that I've ever taken. Now let me just show that to you one more time. This is 3 years of progress on this picture. Look at this one. Let's go back to the very first picture that I took of the Orion Nebula. There it is. That's the very first picture, and in just not even a total of 3 years came and was able to make this one. So what am I telling you? Keep working on your technique. Work on your capture technique. Work on your processing technique. Every time you get, it's not all just about equipment. Sure, I've got much better equipment now than what I had to start out with. But quite frankly, the difference really is in the fact that the more you learn and the more you practice, the better you get. Now, is this picture perfect? Absolutely not. Would Chuck Ayub blow this out? Absolutely. Would Trevor blow this out? Absolutely. But what I'm trying to show you is progress. Don't just worry about making it perfect. Progress. Make a little bit better image each and every time. And what I can do now is hopefully come back in a year, maybe 2 years, come back and even make a better picture. All right. What I want to do now is just close out by showing you some of the pictures that I've taken this year. 2021 has been a frustratingly difficult year for everybody. We've been dealing with the pandemic. Man, I am so thankful that I had astrophotography to kind of give me a place to escape from the world, escape from all the difficulties of the world, and just spend some time looking at the wonders of creation. So I want to show you a few of my favorite pictures from 2021 as we close out this year. Again, thank you for tuning into my channel. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.